Well, good afternoon. It's good to speak to you again and to share another Thursday thought with you. We're in this week where there is the possibility at the end of this week of having some news, and we're not really sure what that entails, whether it will be good or bad or indifferent or take us one way or the other. I'm not really sure, and it's that I really wanted to speak to you today from the Psalms. I don't know how you've been keeping healthy and active during this time. I've been trying a bit of this Joe Wicks, this PE class that he does each day on YouTube, and one thing I've realised is that I'm all right with the exercise, the actual whatever it is that you have to do each day. But the bit I struggle with is the warm up and the warm down, because I'm not very flexible. And he gets you to do things like reach down and touch your toes, and I can just about get to below my knees before it's too much, and the idea of doing splits, it just makes my eyes water. I can't bend, it seems, in that way, and I don't know if that's a sign of health issues that I need to be concerned about, or just the way I am. But that idea of being flexible, I find that in these Psalms, and I was reading through Psalm 77, and you can go and read the whole thing, but he starts in this Psalm, he says, I cried out to God for help, and I cried out to God to hear me. When I was in distress, I sought the Lord. At night I stretched out untiring hands, and I would not be comforted. I remembered you, God, and I groaned. I meditated, and my spirit grew faint. You kept my eyes from closing. I was too troubled to speak. I thought about the former days, the years of long ago. I remembered my songs in the night. My heart meditated, and my spirit asked, will the Lord reject forever? Will he never show his favour again? Has his unfailing love vanished forever? Has his promise failed for all time? Has God forgotten to be merciful? Has he in his anger withheld his compassion? So there's a man who's obviously troubled. His heart is weary. He's crying out to God, and he's seen the chaos and the harshness of this world, and something has happened, and he's pulled in this way. But then he suddenly turns and says, then I thought, to this I would appeal. The years when the Most High stretched out his hand. I will remember the deeds of the Lord. Yes, I will remember your miracles of long ago. I will consider all your works and meditate on all your mighty deeds. Your ways, God, are holy. What God is as great as our God? You are the God who performs miracles. You display your power among the people. And suddenly we find him pulled back in this other direction. And it was that I was just interested in, this pull by the chaos and the harshness of the world, and this pull by the goodness of God. And both are present in this psalm. And I realised that this psalmist, he allows his heart to cry out to God. And he allows himself to also lean back into the past and to his awareness of God's goodness. And there is both at the same time. And what he has is a flexible faith. They say that trees, that the ones that don't last through storms, the ones whose branches fall off, are the ones that are unable to bend. The storm comes, and if it's rigid, if it's still, then they just don't last, they just snap off. But it's those that are flexible, those that can sway, those that can bend in the push and the pull of the storm, that are able to survive. And I just wonder, in our journeys, in our storms that we face, whether we need a bit of flexibility. We need the ability to bend. Because otherwise, if we're unmoving, then the harshness of the world, if we can't acknowledge that, we can't accept that, and we can't cry out to God in that, then it will just be still and it will break us. And at the same time, if all we're consumed with is the goodness of God and the love of God, and that's all we can allow space for, if that's all we can see, and we can't factor in a broken world that isn't Eden anymore, that isn't the way it's meant to be, then that too will crush us. But if we allow a bit of sway, a time to be able to cry out to God in desperation, untiring hands, he says, groaning, growing faint, if we allow that time, then we will also allow the time to savour and to enjoy and to see the goodness of God. And we need both. We need to allow both. We need that flexibility. And the Psalms is not just here, but so often in the Psalms, what you see is this flexibility. This ability to incorporate all aspects of this life. Not everything is to be enjoyed, some things are to be mourned. Not everything is to be savoured, some things are to be rejected. And we need the flexibility, the sway to be able to do that, to move back and forth and to survive these storms. I always think of, is it Jeremiah chapter 17? Sorry, I'm trying to multitask and do two things at once. Jeremiah chapter 17, where it says that there will be those who are planted by a river. Chapter 17, verse 7, I think it is. Here we are. Blessed is the one who trusts in the Lord, whose confidence is in him. They will be like a tree planted by the water that sends out its roots in the stream. It does not fear when heat comes, its leaves are always green, it has no worries in a year of drought, and never fails to bear fruit. There's someone that they've sunk their roots so deeply, like the taproot of a great oak tree that sinks deep and nourishes and sustains, that even when the storm comes, it's deep enough to allow it to sway but to stay rooted, and to nourish it to keep bearing fruit, that one way or the other it still survives. In drought and in heat, it still stands firm. I just wonder if your faith is flexible. I wonder if you're flexible too, physically, like I'm not. But is your faith flexible? Do you have that ability to sway? Do you have that ability to acknowledge all aspects of this world that we live in? That in this world we have trouble, but we have a God who is with us and has overcome the world. Do you allow both? And if not, to start incorporating that. The best way to do that is, like with any stretching, is bit by bit. Just to start to acknowledge both parts. Start to bring to mind in your prayers and your thoughts and your discussions with God all aspects of your life. Not just the clean, pretty bits that you think He wants to see, but every single part of it. And to allow your stretch to just increase your sway, to increase your ability. So when the storms come, you aren't broken, you aren't snapped by it, but you stand firm, rooted in it. I'll just pray. Father, I thank you that in the faith that you've called us to, in the path that you ask us to walk, that there is room, that there is an invitation to sway with you, to go back and forth, to feel pulled in one direction and then in another, to cry out, my God, why have you forsaken me? And to also cry out, God, you have never left me. And I pray at the right time, in the right moments, that we would have the words to speak, whatever it is that we're in, to sway in the direction that we need to, in order to survive the storms that are around us. And so help us in that, Jesus. We ask it in your name. Amen.